Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, October 7th, 2024 meeting for the Village Council for the Village of Yellow Springs. Judy, if you do the roll call, please.
Indeed. Stokes.
I am here.
DeVore Leonard.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Hausch.
Here.
Gustafson. Here. Thank you. Also present is Village Manager Johnny Burns, Project Lead Lise Giardullo, Finance Director Michelle Robinson, Planning and Zoning Administrator Meg Leatherman, and Solicitor Amy Blankenship.
Alrighty, well, we've got some swearings in to do. So, if Chad Runyon, if you could step up, please. Hey, how are you? Good. Long time no see. Yeah. Raise your right hand, please. And this is, because we have a couple things, this is for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Okay. All right. I solemnly swear or affirm.
I solemnly swear or affirm
That's fine. That I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws of the United States
and will obey the laws of the United States
and of the state of Ohio.
and of the state of Ohio,
That I will, in all respects,
that I will in all respects
observe the provisions of the Charter
observe the provisions of the Charter
and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs,
and the ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of Board of Zoning Appeals.
the duties of the office of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you very much. Do me a favor. Have a seat right here. Ready. It'll all be clear soon. Mark Carr, if you step up, please. And this is for all these positions, by the way, for the record, are for alternate positions on the various boards and commissions. And so this one is as an alternate on the environmental commission. So if you raise your right hand, please. I solemnly swear or affirm
I solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws of the United States
and obey the laws of the United States
and of the state of Ohio.
and of the state of Ohio,
That I will, in all respects,
that I will in all respects
observe the provisions of the Charter
observe the provisions of the Charter
and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs,
and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Environmental Commission.
of the Office of Environmental Commission.
All right, great. Thank you. Here, stay there, please. Chad, if you can stop. So both of you now will be sworn in as Planning Commission alternates. That's why we did the little dance we just did. All right, so I will ask you both, please, to raise your right hand. I solemnly swear or affirm
So I solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws of the United States
and will obey the laws of the United States
and of the state of Ohio.
and of the state of Ohio,
That I will, in all respects,
that I will in all respects
observe the provisions of the Charter
observe the provisions of the Charter
and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs,
and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of...
the duties of the Office of Planning Commission.
There we go, Planning Commission. Great. Thank you once again. Stay right here just for 5 more seconds. For each of you, a lapel pin that you will put wherever you choose. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for your service. Appreciate your showmanship. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tell me what I'm doing next. Good. All righty, announcements. And I see that Phillip is called out in particular for an announcement, so if you could please come up.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I am super excited to be here and announce officially Street Fair is coming up on the 12th, which is Saturday. So many people are out getting busy, getting everything ready, and so forth. So just to give everybody the overview, Street Fair starts on Saturday at 9 a.m. for all of the vendors. At 11, the beer garden and the stage is open, which is going to be tremendous. There's 2 stages again this year, with a third one that we're happy to announce. This is the first year for one of the most Yellow Spring themed things we could do. It's the busker stage. So we have some intentional space provided for those people that are like the fabric of the music in this town. So we're super excited about that. Registration is now open for those who are interested in it. They can go to ysstreetfair.com. So from 9 to 5, all of the vendors will be here. All of the stores will be celebrating. And then from 11 to 7, we will close at 7 o'clock with the beer garden, of course, thanks to our partners at Yellow Spring Brewery. And we'll have lots of music there. For everything about parking, for the shuttles, for all of the extensive information that we can't go over here in this excited time, just go to ysstreetfair.com for all of that. We do have some more opportunities for volunteers. We definitely need some more helping hands to make this a successful time. So again, if you would like to volunteer with us, please go to ysstreetfair.com. Yes. I had to read that in my head. So that is really the gist of it. We're super excited. Thank you so much to all of our partners, all of our sponsors. This could not happen without any of them. And I want to say a special thank you to the board of the YS Chamber as well as the community. It does not go unnoticed every single year how this kind of displaces us a little bit. But one of the things that I had the pleasure to say earlier, one of the things that I really enjoy about Street Fair is seeing the familiar faces downtown, shopping and in the stores and at the booths and mingling with our visitors who often become our family here in the community. So thank you to everybody who continues to support the Street Fair, and we look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for, yes, let's applaud that.
Highly energetic.
I don't know if Indian.org.com. I'm looking for more announcements. Brian, I'm leaving.
Yeah, well, a few things. Johnny, do you want to say anything about Halloween?
I am not up to date with Halloween yet.
Okay.
We're still making some changes.
Okay. Well, we know that
It's still happening.
we know trick or treat's happening on the 31st.
Correct.
And I'm sure we're going to
And
support bonfires. Okay. And then our officers will have like full-size candy bars. So those are at least my highlights. And then how much of a surprise is Officer Anderson?
No. We're not
Okay.
talking about that one.
Even though it's all over Facebook. Okay.
Okay.
So, a few other things. For those of you that weren't able to make it, the Mary's Way dedication, which happened yesterday, was amazing. Yeah, I know Phillip was there. We had Johnny, Kevin, gave a nice pin to Rick Donahoe, who was a major part of that. Also, as a reminder, the village purchased land from the schools to make that project happen because we knew how important that was to make that community connection. And yeah, great overall, but really nice to be tying such an asset, Agraria, to the village, to the schools. Really cool. I also wanted to mention we had a joint meeting. Was it just last Wednesday? And it was really great, I think, for the school board and the council to connect. I wanted to throw out there, number one, I thought that the elected officials were amazing at this meeting. And I kind of mentioned that because I thought all of us were respectful of time and pulling ourselves back because we can all speak forever, and I thought we actually really were able to get on the same page on a lot of things. But I wanted to mention there may be a need, especially as we talk later in this meeting, to think about a second joint meeting, especially, I'll just flag it, around the replacement property sports fields thing, which I think is one of those things hanging out there. But anyway, thought it was a success. Yellow Springs Film Festival, really nice. I saw a lot of people out as well. A great thing that is happening in our village, and kudos to the organizers, and also great that Julia Reichert was honored in a special way. I wanted to mention, so I don't forget to all of us, that Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission is now working on the comprehensive climate action planning. And one of the things that they're offering to do is local assessment of emissions and things that you can do to respond to that. Carmen and I will be sharing that at the next Environmental Commission meeting. We just need to let them know by the end of the month that we want to participate so we can bring that on the 21st. Some of you may know the Yellow Springs Development Corporation director who we had been securing that position with, found another position, so we are putting that position back out. We got some really good feedback about how to refine the expectations around that position, and we'll be sharing that with council. But I just wanted to let people know that that happened recently. And I wanted to say, for those of you in the community that don't know, council and then in part our leadership team recently did team building. I think we were together for about 15 hours. And I just wanted to say personally, I thought we accomplished some really nice things in terms of better understanding our communication and leadership styles. I have personally already seen some changes in communications, which I appreciate. And I think that my recommendation would be moving forward that we think about getting a little bit more nitty-gritty about sort of scenario-based kinds of processes to think about how we work through problem solving and decision making. But I thought it was really good. I know that other elected bodies have done that as well. And I have the Springfield resolution that we passed, which is a really nice document. I wanted to just mention to council that I wanted to deliver this framed one to the Haitian Community Center that we note in the resolution. And if anyone else is interested in going out there, you could coordinate through Judy. So just kind of let her know. We could pick a time. We could go out. And we don't have to deliberate about anything. Sure. So I think more than two of us could go if we were able to coordinate that. And last thing I'm going to mention, we had a pretty major storm event before our last meeting, and I fortunately got to run into 3 of our village team members who were talking about what it was like, just to basically be soaked, freezing, trying to get our electric back on. And I was just so impressed because some of the comments were around, I left my family because I'm so dedicated to making sure the village lights stay on. As a side note, there was a comment that they're also, seeing people complaining on Facebook and whatever, and that doesn't make it, so motivating to be out there. But that aside, people can decide what they want to post. I was just really impressed with that dedication, and so I think we should give our village team a round of applause.
Yep. Thank you. All right, Brian, thank you very much for those comments and the commentary. It's all appreciated. And certainly, just to echo with respect to the work that the village team has done and is doing, some of us have accumulated a great deal of tree debris. And certainly with the village going around helping us out with picking that up, I personally appreciate it. Because I personally have a lot of stuff out there. I think we're doing enough with respect to the Civic Plus and the other outreaches, but I've had to share, as neighbors have seen me building my pile, I've talked to several folks who aren't getting the message or haven't signed up yet. So I've encouraged them, folks to do that. And Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's actually two systems. I think that's where some folks I've talked to, they have access to the emergency notification system, but not the non-emergency.
Hyper reaches the emergency, and Civic Plus is general information and construction information we're trying to get out there for messaging.
Yep. So I would just ask everybody that's listening to share with your friends and neighbors. I think this is one opportunity, for information to have gone out. I am getting those messages, and I'm sharing with neighbors that the village will be out picking up the debris. So just that's it. Just share whatever we can, however we can, to make sure folks get the information and can respond appropriately. So that is it for the announcements. So we're moving on to, let me stop. Did anyone else have announcements? Anyone else have the dance? Anything you want to share?
You know what? This is really horrible. It's not horrible. It's great. Alyce Jenkins had a birthday a couple of weeks ago, and I happened to run into her and Mayor Ryan, former Dayton Mayor and Ohio Senator Ryan McClin at Alyce. There's something in the packet about the phenomenal person that Alyce is, and I was fortunate enough to take care of a woman at 84 years old who had who Alyce was her teacher, and she was the first female department head for the Monday program. She started the Monday program in Dayton. So,
Great.
I could say more, but it's in the packet, and I'm going to butcher it. So
All right.
we're good.
Good. Great. Well, appreciate the update. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have 3 items, the first of which are the minutes of the September 16th regular meeting. The chair will entertain a motion to discuss that item.
So moved. To approve.
To approve, thank you. Ooh.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Consent and all.
Thank you, Judy.
You were just in the zone.
That was a minor nuanced thing, but it's a big deal. Thank you for
So
that.
I'm here for you.
Okay. So, I presume there are no questions or concerns with the minutes from the September 6th regular meeting. So all those in favor of approving those minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, the motion is passed. I'll also entertain a motion for the minutes of the September 25th, 2024 special meeting, the joint meeting between the school board and council.
I would love it if you would approve them because I have not finished them.
I know it's like,
Someone might notice that. So if you wouldn't mind skipping that second item there and going to the third one, the third set of minutes is done.
Not a problem. We are now looking to approve the minutes of the September 27th, 2024 special meeting, which was the team building exercise that was alluded to earlier. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving those minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. That motion is passed, and we will touch on the joint school meeting at a later date. All right. Review of the agenda. Is there anything on the agenda that ought to be reconsidered? Are there any pressing issues missing from the agenda that should be added to the agenda? All right. Hearing none, we will follow the agenda as published. Now we are to petitions and communications, and Gavin, if you could share with us about those, please.
Yeah, the clerk will receive and file Dorothee Bouquet on Rebecca Potter related to the school facilities, Carmen Brown about Alyce Earl Jenkins, she just referenced, Dirk Lackovich-Van Gorp related to the low-income housing tax credit, questions or concerns, and Rebecca Mark related to endorsements for support of the redistricting issue, issue 1.
All right. Well, Gavin, thank you for that. We're moving on to public hearings and legislation. I will note we do have a few pieces of legislation. Most of them are first readings of ordinances, but there is an emergency reading, and the chair will entertain a motion to read that emergency ordinance by title only.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of doing so, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. So, Judy, if you could read by title only, the first reading of ordinance 2024-11.
Yes, this is rezoning one parcel totaling 3.612 acres of property located at 420 East Enon Road from low-density residential RA district to high-density residential RC district, and amending the zoning map accordingly.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All righty. Meg, you're up.
Meg Leatherman, Planning and Zoning Administrator. As Judy just stated, this is a rezone request, or what we call technically a zoning map amendment, submitted by the Village of Yellow Springs Exempted School District, located at 420 East Enon. The property is presently RA zone and also Gateway zone, and the request is to rezone 3.612 acres of property to RC, so from RA to RC. The Planning Commission was a recommending body for this application, and they voted 4-0 to approve the application at their September 10th meeting. And the code requires, when you're taking forward an ordinance associated with this application, that a first reading and a second reading occur, and that the first reading is, as you said, reading by title order only, and then the second reading is for that public hearing and public comment. So a public hearing will be held at the next council meeting and will be considered a second reading officially by the code. And I will provide at that time an overview of the project in a little bit more detail. And again, we'll take public comment at that time. And this is for the October 21st meeting, and it's also when the council votes at that meeting. So again, the intent of having the first reading and second reading separated like this is to make the council aware that the project is coming forward, and to be able to have a little bit of time to review the material in addition to the public, and making the public aware of the project, and so they can spend a little bit of time reviewing the application material. So that will be October 21st. And included in tonight's council packet is the Planning Commission's recommendation, which council will be considering whether or not they want to adopt it based on those recommendations, or make modifications, or deny potentially. That's how it is for all the options laid out in the code. So that's all I had tonight. Oh, and I just also want to note that the public notice goes out this week for this meeting too. We hadn't sent out the public notice to the neighbors. That's not required. It's only required before the public hearing, so that will occur as well.
Okay, great. Meg, thank you for that. And really thank you, because you said a lot of what I was going to say about first reading versus second reading. This is not a public hearing. That will happen at the next meeting. But while we have Meg at the podium, does council have anything pressing they'd like to ask with this first reading? All right. Happy to hear that. All right. Thank you very much. So we will take this up again at our next meeting, as has been, as we have been advised. So thank you for that, Meg. Appreciate you. Judy, if you could now read by title only, ordinance 2024-12.
This is accepting Planning Commission recommendation and approving the final plat for Phase 2 of the Spring Meadows subdivision.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you very much. Meg, looks like you're up again.
So basically, a lot of the procedural aspects apply to this as well. This is a first reading for a final plat of Phase 2 of the Spring Meadows subdivision, located at 402 North Wright Street, which is directly behind Phase 1. The Planning Commission also recommended, was a recommending body for the final plat, and voted 4-0 to approve the application. A public hearing will be held at the next council meeting, October 21st, with the second reading. And again, I'll provide a little bit more detailed overview of the project and background for you and for the public. And also included in tonight's council memo is a copy of the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval that you and the public can review. And then the council will be making a decision at the next council meeting. And also a notice will go out to adjoining property owners this week.
Okay, great. Having heard all of that, I am just going to move on the premise that we won't have any comments, and per Meg's advice that she will bring additional information, so we will, I would like us to reserve any comments that we might have until that second meeting. Thank you, Meg.
Yeah.
All right.
Although I guess I would like to flag one thing for that. So related to the green space set aside or whatever it is, I guess I would be curious if there's like a vision for the overall 90 units, or at least to kind of like stack up like phase 1 versus phase 2 or what we know. So if that could be fleshed out a little bit, if it's possible.
Duly noted. All right. Thank you again, everyone. Judy, it looks like we're down to Ordinance 2024-13, if you can read that by title only.
This is repealing Section 238.04 Investment Policy and enacting new Section 238.04 Investment Policy of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion. Do we get a second?
Second.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, I'm looking around. Is this, anybody want to talk about this?
I can go on with this. You all had suggested a very minor change to this policy. There's a strike through in bold for that one little weeny section where that occurs, section P, which changes it. Instead of reviewing it annually, it's reviewed when a recommendation is made by the Finance Committee. That is the only change to that ordinance.
Any members of the Finance Committee want to have any commentary?
Yeah, I think we just talked about this as being a cleanup at the last meeting, so.
Okay. Good enough. All in favor of approving this resolution, please indicate.
Well,
I'm sorry, it's an ordinance and we're not doing anything with it right now.
There you go.
First time back in a while. All righty. Now, it looks like we're at the first reading of ordinance 2024-14. Judy, if you could read that back to me, please.
All right, this is repealing Section 238.06, Sale and Reinvestment of Renewable Energy Credits, and enacting new Section 238.06, Sale and Reinvestment of Renewable Energy Credits of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Thank you very much, Judy. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
This one is me.
Yep.
And we, again, have strike-throughs on, just on the review as annual to as needed by the village manager. And that was the only strike-through.
All right. Good enough. Again, this being first reading, we will have an opportunity to see this again. I will ask Johnny, is what's in the packet regarding this ordinance complete, or do we anticipate getting anything additional between now?
We'll get a memo on what we're currently spending on with these funds.
Okay.
So we'll have a complete memo on the sell the Rex so last time on how much we've spent on everything.
Okay, great. So, council, then we can anticipate receiving additional information in addition to what's currently in the packet, so it's certainly appropriate that we do our deeper dive at our next meeting. Now, we're at the emergency reading of ordinance 2024-15, and Judy, if you could read that by title only.
This is authorizing the transfer of funds and declaring an emergency.
Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second?
All right. Michelle.
So the transfer ordinance you have in front of you is normally handled at the beginning of the year when the 2024 budget ordinance is passed. This is council's approval of the transfers. In past years, prior to 2022, the transfer ordinance was normally brought to council immediately following the passing of the budget. In working with former finance director Melissa Dodd and our auditors Julian and Group, we noticed that this had not been done for the past couple of years. So that's why it's coming to you now in October versus January, February.
Okay. Johnny, do we know, or I don't know, does anyone know how we stopped doing this process?
We cannot answer that. We're just picking the ball up and running with it, with the new administration.
Okay.
And then we'll reinstate it starting now.
We have a process.
Excellent, excellent. Council, any questions, comments?
So I just wanted to double check about the Widows Fund transfer, 80,000. So is that an annual transfer?
This was pulled directly out of the approved budget that was passed in December of 2023. So
Okay.
I'm assuming so. But
I think the line items are,
I think they're.
it's not 80,000, it's 1,500.
It's moved down.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a jockey in the line situation.
Yes.
Obviously, we're going to honor willing God, no matter what, but,
Right.
yeah.
They're
Okay.
flipped.
Nice.
101 should be 300,000.
Right.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay. Before I open the public,
that's an administrative error, so that does not, it doesn't have to come back.
Right.
Was that the worry that you were? No.
The only issue.
It looks like.
Appears to be nice. That was a nice catch, Brian. Would have been some happy widows.
Yes.
I was like, how much is flour these days?
It's a lot.
Inflation.
I was like, oh, we're getting gluten-free.
yeah, right, gluten-free.
Yes.
So if nothing else from council, we will open the public hearing, this being an emergency ordinance reading. The public hearing is open currently. Does the public have comments, questions, concerns about this ordinance? Please come on up and do the thing.
Hi, Riley Dixon. Then clarification. So everything gets shifted up by a line. Where does that leave Parks and Rec Improvement Fund if 70,000 are going to the police pension fund?
Michelle, you want to come on up?
I can pull my numbers real quick, but I believe they're flip-flop. The 80,000 goes to police pension and the 1,500 goes to widows.
Okay, and then
That sounds right.
Parks and Rec stays at 70.
So it's not a shifting of it, it's just those two were flipped.
Thank you.
Okay. Everyone else straight on that? All right, any other public comments, questions, concerns? All right, hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Council, anything else before we call for vote?
Can I ask for council to amend the ordinance before you?
That's an excellent idea.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to amend that the transfer is 1,500 to the Widows Fund and 80,000 to the Police Pension Fund.
I will second that motion. All in favor of making that modification to the ordinance, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion has passed. Now, I believe we are ready to vote for the modified ordinance. Judy, if you could call the roll. A roll call vote, please.
Indeed. Pausch.
Yes.
DeBoer Leonard.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All righty. We are now to the reading of Resolution 2024-62. Judy, I'm going to ask that you read as much of it as you want.
Oh, I feel like that's unfair. Okay, supporting passage of issue 1 on the November 5th, 2024 election ballot and endorsing the Citizens, Not Politicians campaign. Whereas issue 1 in the forthcoming election on November 5, 2024 is a proposal for an Ohio constitutional amendment for fair legislative and congressional districts, and whereas passage of issue 1 will replace the current politician-driven process of drawing legislative and congressional districts, aka voting districts, with a citizens redistricting commission that will be required to create fair districts which contain roughly equal numbers of people and which reflect the composition of population in the state of Ohio. And whereas the drawing and redrawing of voting districts is an essential feature of our American democracy, and whereas gerrymandering is generally defined as the practice of dividing a geographic area into voting districts for the purpose of giving an unfair advantage to one political party in elections, and whereas the practice of gerrymandering has become increasingly common in places where district lines are drawn by state legislators that are controlled by one political party, and whereas the goal of gerrymandering is to create safe voting districts where politicians essentially choose their voters to ensure that they are reelected, and whereas gerrymandered districts have been shown to result in elections with predictable outcomes, unresponsive elected officials, and disengaged voters. And according to the Brennan Center for Justice, the practice of gerrymandering has had detrimental effects on American democracy. And whereas in 2015 and 18, Ohioans overwhelmingly voted to reform the redistricting process, but politicians in the Ohio legislature have remained in control of drawing new voting district lines, resulting in district maps that were ruled to be unconstitutional 7 times by the Ohio Supreme Court in the period after the 2020 census. And whereas politicians of all stripes, let's add an E, including both Democrats and Republicans, have demonstrated a tendency to produce gerrymandered districts when they are presented with the opportunity to control a state legislature. And whereas passage of issue 1 will, 1, create a citizens redistricting commission made up of 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and 5 independents who represent the different areas and demographics of Ohio. It will ban current and former politicians, political party officials, lobbyists, and large political donors from serving on the commission. It will require fair and impartial districts by making it unconstitutional to draw maps that favor any political party or individual politician. It will 4, require the commission to operate under an open and independent process, and 5, change the way our legislative and congressional districts are drawn to better reflect the will of Ohio voters. Whereas issue 1 is nonpartisan, and whereas issue 1 has received bipartisan support from many concerned citizens groups, including the Brennan Center for Justice, Common Cause Ohio, League of Women Voters Ohio, and the Ohio NAACP, and whereas issue 1 is political only in the sense that it supports democratic practices and voting rights, whereas the campaign for passage of issue 1 is also known as Citizens, Not Politicians. Now therefore be it resolved by Council for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, that Section 1, Council hereby supports passage of issue 1 in the forthcoming election on November 5th, 2024, and urges citizens to vote yes on this proposed constitutional amendment. Section 2, Council hereby endorses the Citizens, Not Politicians campaign for the passage of issue 1.
Thank you, Judy.
I was trying to make it real clear since the ballot language is real not clear.
Gotcha. You did an excellent job. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, great, thanks. So, council, I would imagine some might want to share some comments. Now's the time to do so.
This is awesome.
Cool.
That's all I got.
Cool beans.
Yeah, right.
Well, I just want to appreciate MJ, Rebecca, Jill's work. I know there's been a lot of footwork and talking to people and moving this forward. The other thing is I want to make sure that we think about who this should be sent to. So to me, Hackett and Dean and maybe the governor or whatever. But if you guys have other ideas you can share with Judy. Yeah.
If you don't mind, I just want to ask, are you capable of adding an endorsement to the campaign? In other words, Citizens Not Politicians has a website and they do have endorsements. And would the Village of Yellow Springs Council consider adding their name by this? And please add the E to strike. I don't misspell, so.
I got it.
That's why we read them out loud.
And also one last thing is that there's so many people who worked on this, but nobody worked harder than you, MJ. Let me just explain one thing.
Oh, here we go.
Our little village village had a lot bigger impact than what you would expect for getting this on the ballot so that we could all vote on it.
Because so many visitors.
MJ appeared practically every single weekend with a rolling cabinet so she could collect ballot signatures from 88 counties. And as I say,
And she's had a whole team of people. It's very difficult for me to walk around with multiple clipboards and manage them quickly enough to get signatures. So I stood by the cart, but there was a whole team of people walking around through the village, down by the bike path, and,
Thank you very much. Yeah, wait, and I want to say that what I observed is that a lot of our visitors, a lot of the people who come and recreate in Yellow Springs, especially on the weekends, signed.
Yeah.
And that was really good to see.
we got 69 of the 88 counties. We got
Excellent.
signatures from.
Excellent.
Now, some of them, it was very few, but
Sure.
69 of the 88 counties. And they also, that tells you how much people appreciate Yellow Springs, because they were not only signing, they were talking about why they were here. And,
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So I think to Rebecca's question, we should be able to do that endorsement, so I would just,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Okay. Done.
Okay.
Alrighty. Any other comments, excuse me, before we vote? Alrighty then. All in favor of passing this resolution, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Alrighty, thank you very much. The motion has passed.
Stop gerrymandering.
Thank you, everyone. We are now to the part of the meeting where we open up the meeting for citizen concerns. This is where each of you is allowed and encouraged to come up to the podium, identify yourself, your relationship to the village, and we ask that you speak on topics that are not otherwise covered on the agenda. And certainly if someone has already shared your thoughts, we would ask that you please share some unique information as opposed to repeating what's already been said. Judy will be our timekeeper, and she will indicate when your 3 minutes is up. Are there any citizen concerns? Yep, come on up.
Made it just in time. All right, my name is Matthew Kirk. I'm a resident in 1745 Southview Drive, Yellow Springs, Ohio. And I guess I wanted to come tonight to talk to you a little bit about land use. And I know you have some things on the agenda that obviously deal with that on an individual basis. But I guess I'm trying to take a more holistic use at our land use, for instance. You know, we happen to have a low-income housing tax credit project that's been very difficult to cite because we don't have any land that meets those criteria that's in the township. At the same time, we have groups that are coming to the village to ask for conservation easements to be put on land outside the township. The great irony in that is one of the reasons that land scores so high in the township is because we don't have any housing in the township because we've prevented all of it from being built. On the north side of town, the south side of town, the east side of town, all that's left is a few locations to the west as opportunity, possibly in the future for the village. So these things are going hand in hand in a lot of ways. We're creating our own problems and then going, oh, now we've got to solve this. But in some ways, we should, I think, be more proactive with our thought about land use. Part of the land that's available to the west of the village abuts the urban service boundary, which means you have the potential to expand the urban service boundary. You should be taking control of that, controlling your own destiny with that. If you allow someone else to have control of that, well, you miss the carts down the road, And that's what continues to happen is we are not proactive about these things. So now we're scrambling at the last minute. And a big part of this comes down to, again, we have this constant housing conversation, which often gets wrapped up in affordable housing because that's something where there's programs for and whatever. But what we don't think about in Yellow Springs is the idea of generational housing. For instance, I'm in my early 40s. I've got an 11-year-old. let's say life works out well and, I'm still living in the village in 20 years from now and he wants to move back here, at the rate we've been historically adding houses, there's just simply no place for him and my other child to move back and have their families. And that goes the same for every family in Yellow Springs, because we just aren't building in that future capacity for future generations. And that goes beyond affordability. That just factors into having a working system, functional system when it comes around housing, so that you have some places that are, being new, some places that are becoming, maybe more of a fixer-upper that becomes in what can be someone's first home. But we're not allowing that process to happen because we have such scarcity in the system. And by continuing our history of land use decisions, we're going to continue to have that. So I think if we want to have a different future, then we have to look at our past and maybe make some different choices than what we've been making. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other citizen concerns? Yes, please. Come up, identify yourself.
All right. My name's Tom Degenhart. I live at 215 East Wyman Street, and I'm here to express concerns over the new proposed development at the Student Union Building, mainly density and parking. They're proposing 128 units in two buildings, 160 bedrooms. That could house 5% of the current population of Yellow Springs. Do we really want 5% of the population in a less than a one-block area? 160 bedrooms. That's the same amount of bedrooms as all of East Whiteman, all of East Davis, all of East Limestone, and Glen Street. So that whole part of the neighborhood. So it's going to have a great impact on the neighborhood. Doesn't match the neighborhood. The three largest apartment complexes in town, Hawthorne, Lawson Place, and Twin Coach, you add all those together, that's 123 units. So 5 units less than what this building's going to have. Those three complexes are on 14.5 acres. So 5 less than what this is going to have in less than, or 2 acres basically. So, it's just way too dense. If only one of these buildings is built of the 2 that are proposed, it would still be the biggest apartment complex in Yellow Springs. And it still would not have enough parking with their 2 parking lots that they have if we keep the code of 2 parking spaces per unit. The senior center, which is going to build their new facility catty corner across from the street, they're planning on diagonal parking on East North College. That'll never be available for them. It'll be overflow parking for this development. Rockford Center, Rockford Chapel, they will have no parking. It'll all be overflow parking for them. I invite all of you to walk down the street this Saturday for Street Fair, down Davis, Whiteman, and President. It's jammed with cars. That's what it's going to be like every day if this development's built. If this is going to be developed, which I think it probably will be at some point, hopefully not at this density, I think we ought to extend East North College from Livermore down to Corey Street and only have vehicular access into the complex from there, not from Whiteman, not from President Street. Let's keep the neighborhood, the way Whiteman and Davis come together, it's a dangerous intersection as it is. This complex will overwhelm the neighborhood. I think we need responsible planning if we're going to do housing in there. This is not our last chance. This is irresponsible if we approve something which it meets pretty much none of the PUD code that it wants to be rezoned as. Virtually none of the code. And my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Additional citizen concerns? Yes, Dino.
Hi, Dino Pallotta, local resident, 225 Xenia Avenue. I have a procedural question for you guys tonight. What are the soft dollar costs and the amount of hours you have tasked the entire village staff and legal counsel for investigating your housing project? I'd like to get an answer to that. We know you've pulled $20,000 of taxpayer dollars to do investigation for the school board and their property, but what are the soft dollar costs that you put our staff to do this work and in trade not do their work efficiently? What I'd like to see happen is if you guys would take a vote on whether to advance or end this process. The only votes that you've continually taken is to continue the investigative process, yet incurring more soft costs. Lastly, and probably most importantly, I want you to think about one thing. As you know, some of you know, some of you don't know, we have a school operating levy coming up on November 5th. And I believe your actions regarding this housing project are significantly putting at risk the passage of it. Please take that into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Dino. Any other additional citizen concerns?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Brad Kayada, the director of the Greene County Learning Center located at 360 East Enon Road. I know recently in the past couple meetings, the Greene County ESC has been brought up. I just wanted to come tonight and tell you a little bit more about the Greene County Learning Center and what we do there. So we serve kindergarten through 12th grade students in all of Greene County, not just Yellow Springs students, but any district within Greene County. And we're more for students that are struggling to regulate their emotions, students that need a little bit more time to complete tasks. We're really working on building coping strategies, communication skills, how to deal with their peers as well. And our goal is to get them back to their regular school. That's our main goal. That's what we do at the Learning Center. We use the space around our building lots of times for breaks for students. If you ever come by, drive by, you'll see staff, students outside taking breaks, walking. We have instruments outside for students to take a break on, play some music. We use the soccer fields next to our building for field day, for fun Friday activities, whether that's kickball, flag football, soccer, any type of activity you can think of. We've done water balloon tosses. I've got pied in the face out there before, so whatever. So those types of activities as well. So our students need high structure. Our students need safety, and just having that space to be able to do that, the space for them to be able to run if they need to get some energy out, the space to definitely take walks to get away from things that may be triggering them, upsetting them, providing more anxiety to them, and keeping them safe. Having more traffic in that area, having housing in that area would not be beneficial to our students. Which obviously, again, like I said, we provide services to all students in Greene County. And just wanted to let you guys know a little bit more about what we do. We're working with our high school students. We've partnered with the Trades Initiative. They're over in the Xenia area, but trying to teach some of our high school students some skills as far as trade skills in the area of HVAC, plumbing, electrical, so that giving them more hands-on, ready to graduate type skills, and have a skill that they're able to go and, as soon as they graduate, ready to go and get a job and be productive citizens in the community, hopefully in the Greene County area where they live. So that's just wanted to thank you for your time and just let you know a little bit more about what the Learning Center does. Thanks.
Thank you, Brett. I appreciate that information. I learned a little bit. I appreciate it. All right, additional citizen concerns. Going once. Laura, just say thank you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, do I understand correctly that we are intended to table our discussion of housing for the next meeting?
Oh. Well, there'll be some discussion of, well...
The public hearing is on October 21st, so if we have comments specific to that, we should save them.
For the zoning piece. For Springs Road. You talking about the zoning? The zoning question? That'll be next meeting, but there's still a low-income housing tax credit conversation here.
But you're talking about for the school property, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we've already gotten some comments about that, so I think if you want to make a comment, that would be appropriate.
Well, I guess I'm up here now, but I had been planning to wait.
Well, possession is 9/10 of the law. So you got the mic.
I will just throw out there that I am really passionate about green space. I make a whole living on advising people in town on how to best beautify their properties, how to make them as ecologically beneficial as possible. And that being said, I'm not up here to advocate for Morgan Fields to stay a green space. I have been in the process all week of moving into a new apartment with my partner, and that's been a really joyous experience and very tiring experience. So we were on the fence about whether we should come tonight or not, but we decided that we still want to be here and advocate for affordable housing. Everything about the process of moving into this new place has been wonderful, with the exception of not being in Yellow Springs. So we chose to choose a place in Springfield where it is more affordable, with the hope of eventually coming back to Yellow Springs. And I didn't have my thoughts as collected for this as I thought I was going to, but the point is just that if it's challenging for both of us with professional incomes to be finding places to live in Yellow Springs, to be part of this community, then it's even harder for the people who don't have our positions of privilege of having the security that we are lucky to have. And so, as I've advocated for before, just every chance that we have to further affordable housing in town, I'm going to stand behind that and continue advocating for it. Thank you.
Molly, for the record, if you could identify yourself.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My name's Molly Finch.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other citizen concerns? And Laura, I mentioned your name because you came in right as we were doing citizen concerns. I just wanted to let
I
you.
missed the memo that you changed the meeting time, sorry.
Oh, okay.
My apologies.
Not a problem. So, citizen concerns. All right. Seeing no activity, we're going to close the public portion of the meeting. We're moving on now. Thank you very much for everyone who's participated. I'm not seeing any special reports unless I'm missing something. All right, so moving on to the manager's report.
Let's get started with Meg's got 9 new building permits, some single-family dwellings, some commercial permits in there. The big one for this week is really the storm. Brian mentioned earlier about the team. We have a huge amount of overtime, so Michelle and I are watching the budget. We may have to bring something back for that. But I can't say enough about the staff. They was 30-plus hours. We, from the time we had the first initial power outage till everybody was back on after the electricians even did their jobs, we had everybody back on in 24 hours. With that being said, we're very fortunate. We're a small town. We didn't get the major amount of damage that Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, and all that happened. So
even Dayton.
Even Dayton. Kettering was out for 7 days. I mean, when you're talking hundreds of thousands of people, we're just talking electric. You got trees and roads are missing. So we are very fortunate. Even though it was a lot of work, but we're very fortunate. And so, Brian, to go back to your comment about the Facebook, that's what we look at. So the little Facebook stuff, it's very irritating, but okay. When you're missing roads and helicopters are flying in to get you, that's where the real problems are. So I just wanted to give another shout out to the crews, police department, Miami Township, dispatchers, extra dispatchers come in, road crew was completely in, the electric crew was completely in. We had citizens going around and helping pull stuff off of the street as well. We gave cones to some people to mark some hazards. So, and it was during the downpouring rain all the way. It rained all night, to be honest with you. It stopped and then it started again. The citizens, would say, "Hey, you want some coffee?" It was just tremendous, but at the same time, a lot of work got done, and wanted to give them a big shout out.
On that note, I'm not aware of I didn't see the Facebook post, but I've heard nothing but positives on how the crews handled it. So.
Yeah. Let me go a little bit further. Once we did get off, and some of us that have been here all night, South Vienna needed help, so we actually had a lineman go up and help the AMP circuit rider change out some cutouts that was in a dangerous situation. So the superintendent didn't get back until midnight. So we actually ran mutual aid after we got all of our stuff. But in the same sense, he was actually here helping us Saturday as well. So we got a great relationship with AMP and all the surrounding communities.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
So we are picking up brush and logs and trees and stumps and if you have pulled things out to the curb, don't park in front of it, because then we have to skip you and come back. And so if you've got things pulled out there, it could be a week. It could be even next week. I mean, we are actually preparing for street fair at the same time. So, the storm didn't come at a good time, but there's never a good time for a storm. So be patient with us. We're looking at it. If you see a hazardous tree in the right-of-way area, please let us know. We've found 2 today that needed to be cut down. Enoch has worked nonstop for us. Can't say nothing great about him. He come in, he worked with us Friday night, he worked with us all day Saturday. So, and they're actually helping clean up everything that they cut as well. 4.39 inches of rain in September, and it was all in one day. So just so you guys know, we have wastewater treatment plant did a very well job producing and making sure that we're all in compliance. So traffic study, I am waiting on a final quote so I can put it in the budget for the overall traffic study for the entire village. Okay. Ben did submit the RP3 application for APPA. We are at the basic level. We are shooting for the top level, and we're about a year ahead of.
Can you expound on that?
So the RP3 is a safety program through the utilities that makes sure that all your policies are up to date, make sure all your pay is in line with the national organization. What we learned with filling out the first one is man, we was doing good, but we need to get better. Well, we don't want to be better, we want to be great. So we went ahead and refilled out the application. We knew what we needed to do, and we have got that done, so we was able to submit some such as like doing monthly check-ins with all the department heads on, we call it a what if. So nobody knows what the scenario is, but I tasked somebody to come in and they bring in a scenario. Last scenario Paige brought in was we have 3 terrorist attacks and they've hit all of our structures. Well, we have a brainstorming session on how we're going to do it. The first one that I did 2 months ago was we had a tornado and it took out the water towers. What are we doing? How are we responding? So it's making you aware of things so you know how to respond when emergencies happen. So, Lawson Place is still on the October 21st with the blacktopping, along with Xenia Avenue and Dayton Street. We got our new sign put back up at Bill Duncan Park. So we're going to be putting a couple of new signs in other parks coming up. The water line project for House Bill 168, the last little bit of line went up US 68, and now they have fallen back. They're doing services and doing restoration and doing a little storm job on Davis Street. So that project should be wrapping up here in the next month, 6 weeks. Water meters, that project is going very well. They've actually completed 756 meters with 180 of them being inside. So we're hoping that maybe in about another 4 weeks, all the new water meters will be installed and be able to get online. So the newsletter has been sent to the printer. We made a decision to send it to everybody in 45387, so even the township will be getting it. That goes out to 2,931 addresses. That way we can get some information out to surrounding neighbors that we have that live outside of the village as well. In that, on the second page, there is Civic Plus and there is the Hyper Reach. That way 2,931 homes will know how to sign up for both of those applications.
Great.
So look forward to seeing what everybody thinks about the newsletter and more issues to come. And that is what I have.
Great. There were some things that have been sent out that I'm anxious to respond to, so not yet, tomorrow maybe. But for the signature block standards, and I think that's a great idea, by the way. And I don't want to steal anybody's thunder. We'll wait till we are ready to push that out. Council, any questions for the village manager?
I've just got one little thing, which is just, my wife was one of the people who didn't have Civic Plus. So like, how are you getting these messages? She's getting the Hyper Reach, but not the Civic Plus. So I think there's education to be done for sure. A couple people have mentioned to me, I'll just throw out, I wonder about us taking on a data project at some point to make it so that the updates that could go out could be address specific. Just right now, if you're living in one part of town and you don't have an outage, you're getting a notification about the outage. I wonder if there would be a way to make it so that it would be able to be done by location. So just throwing that out there as a thing that a couple people have asked me about. And that's all.
Anyone else? All right, great. Thank you all, and thank you, Johnny, for the updates, the highlights from the manager's report. And as it turns out, Johnny, you are on task for the old business item. We're now at old business, and we've got the low-income housing tax credit update.
Okay, so you'll see that there's a couple of reports. Staff and the task force, I guess you should say, with school board and with council members and staff put together a memo. Gavin has a 5-page memo in there as well. So really, I don't want to go through it all. I think I just want to go back to a memo. We have some points that we need to have clarified from council moving forward. We have, the coordination between the meetings, the intergovernmental meetings. What we would like to do is we've come up with our timeline and it's in there. Hypothetically, we need to have everything ready to go out the door November 8th. So we would like to see, Brian, I sent you the appraisal. Yep. It is $1,500. It went up just a little bit, but not as much as.
But they said up to 15,
yes,
right?
They did say they said not to exceed 1,500.
Yep.
So that is on the table. I just need to have a directive from council to, are we paying for that, school paying for that? This is for the 3.6 acres of the school property that the village is looking to acquire. The next one would be a vote from council on an RFQ and a timeline. And then the next one would be a vote to have a link on a website to be able to have all the LIHTC documentations in one area to where if somebody's looking for any information on a LIHTC, anything that we have put together or answered or memos, it is all in one location. So those are the 3 tasks that we have, just short and sweet. We have a big memo in there.
The village manager did ask about some guidance in terms of expenditures. Can we get a proposal from the working group in terms of how do you think those concerns should be handled? And I'm not, to be clear, I'm not asking for it right now, but I'm asking if the working group could get together and make a proposal because there are some potential outstanding costs upcoming, and
So I think my understanding is that the 3 things that Johnny's talking about are recommendations from, that was built into the memo, was that those are the things that I think we're asking for answers on tonight, if possible, as recommendations. I will say, I would anticipate another recommendation coming at our next meeting, but that's still being worked on. But those are kind of the things that when we all met, we thought to keep this moving forward should be decided on. I think the last one, obviously the web page, that's easy, right? Easy enough. I understand that Ben can make it happen. And we've got some work to do on, we said we're going to make sure that answers to all the questions are out there. But I think if I understand the timeline for the appraisals, or for the appraisal for the school property, we need to decide on that tonight, Johnny, to stay with the timeline?
Well, he's saying he can start on it, but it will take 3 to 4 weeks to finish it.
Okay.
So the other thing I want to back up, the other thing is to date, and this was without October on the legal fees, we are $12,008.50.
Of the 20?
Of the 20.
Okay.
So
that
my other question is does the $1,500, if the village is paying for that amount, does it come out of that 15 or out of that 20,000?
So let me get the 3. I've got appraisal costs, I wrote single source of information website, and what am I missing?
RFQ.
RFQ.
Okay. And that's not a cost thing, but it's more, does council agree that we can put that, give permission to put that out?
And in terms of tonight, is it just the appraisal costs or?
No, it's all 3.
All 3? Okay.
We need some clear directions.
Okay.
Well, if I could interject. So I was going to bring this up when we went through the PowerPoint, but this seems like a suitable time. In all of the information that we received on the update, I would tell you that I was very disappointed that it did not include the information that we received, the unfortunate information that there are issues with the 2 proposed properties for the replacement of the soccer fields. That my understanding is that those are now dead in the water. And Gaunt Park is now being considered as a prospect for the soccer fields. With all of that, I think we need to have a better understanding of where this is going. None of that information was put in the update, and I would propose that we wait on the resolution for the rezoning and expenditures of funds until we have an idea, because we can't move forward with this. There's already a resolution by the school board that says there has to be replacement. It has to be equivalent. And we don't have that. We're not seeing that right now. We didn't know this last week, or 2 weeks ago when this was prepared.
So I'm not sure about the 2 properties being dead in the water, where that came from. So a letter is going out to the property owner that, the negotiations have been happening, and discussions anyway. Those are continuing. So
the 30 acres?
So that is the alternate property, which is, 30 acres that the property owner does not want to split up, that's dead in the water. But the property to the south of the schools that has been talked about for a couple months now, that's still being discussed. We're still we're finalizing between Johnny and the schools what the cost would be to prepare that property. So that's definitely not dead in the water.
I wasn't at this meeting. Carmen, Johnny, what was said about the other property? It's my understanding that the other one, that the owner, so we've got the one that they only want to sell 30 acres.
Right.
And the owner of the second property is not willing to negotiate.
I know that they have not sent anything. They sent them a letter, but they have not sent anything else. And it was, under my understanding, that it was not happening.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
All right, well, let's dial this back to the appraisal and how much money has been spent so far of the $20,000. Let's start there. And you said it's what, roughly $13,000?
$12,008.50.
Okay. And that is that to date?
That is to the end of September.
That's to the end of September, okay. Yes, please.
Sorry. The 20,000 that you're referring to in the document that was approved in, hello, by the way, good evening, was for legal fees only.
Okay.
And we're talking about the appraisal.
So it couldn't be used for the appraisal?
It's designated in that document as the commitment for legal fees.
Right.
So this would be a separate expense from, we wouldn't be looking at the 20,000 minus, what was the number, 12,000?
12,000.
As that money coming out of that. It would be a separate consideration.
Okay.
And then the other thing I guess I want to say about the RFQ, and then we can parse these out, is the reason why staff is focusing on a request for qualifications is that's a very common process. If you've got a potential project and you want to just see who's interested, who could actually do it, and that's why we thought, even though, like you said, Trish, some other things need to be still confirmed, we think we're going to be able to remove the lien, but it's not 100% yet. But the RFQ is a way to at least see who's out there at low cost. We're not going to, they're not going to have to spend hours putting together a package. And then the timeline that Meg and Johnny presented then has an RFP on the back end if all those things get figured out. So.
All right, I know that we're supposed to have a meeting at some point.
Tomorrow.
Right.
And so, so that tomorrow meeting is the task force that Johnny referred to, which is exactly about, Trish, what you're bringing up, which is the follow-up with the property owner on the south, which, again, we don't know what's going to happen there yet. And then what else we need to think about. So to me, we're basically talking about $1,500, and the buyer usually pays for the appraisal. That's a side note. And yeah, there would be some staff time on putting together the RFQ.
All right, help me out. We don't have to share names, but there's a 30-acre piece.
So this is Rick Donahoe's property, and I do want to figure out a way that we can make sure that 30 acres, as he wants to, goes to a great use, but he's not willing to parse that out for sports fields.
Okay. So Rick Donahoe, 30 acres, all or nothing.
Okay. So then the property to the south, that is Julie Jones. Mm-hmm. We've been talking to her for 4 or 5 months. She has not indicated, she has continued to be part of discussions, so we do not know where that's going to go, but she's been willing to talk.
I think that we will have a clear understanding about how to move forward. Right now, there's too many variables, and we don't have the clarification that we need to move forward with paying for an appraisal. But we may have more clarification tomorrow. And I know that it's time sensitive. We are beholden to all these timelines, but we also have timelines. So I think that we should wait until we have this meeting tomorrow, and after the meeting, move on from there. And that's not giving us very much time, but there are too many questions on the table that are just saying that there are too many questions on the table for me. And I think that, like I said, I would have more clarification tomorrow after the meeting.
Okay, and so I guess since we're kind of looking at each other and we are the reps.
It's us.
So to me, I feel like I'm hearing two recommendations from staff to approve up to $1,500 for an appraisal and permission to get an RFQ out by this Friday. And then the webpage, which, we all are going to support that. So that's what I'm focused on. I think those are two very small asks. And as a side note, for folks that are concerned about the investment of taxpayer dollars, I mean, we have spent less than 0.1% of what this project brings in. And remember, whenever we have any kind of housing, property taxes, income taxes, lower utilities, lower levy costs for people. I mean, these are like just basic things that happen, which is why, we're pursuing this. So anyway, I guess I would love to have more surety as well, but I guess I don't think we can wait until our next meeting to make that decision. But I understand your
tomorrow.
Concerns. Yeah, but then we don't have a council meeting until the 21st.
Right.
Well, when Carmen mentioned the meeting tomorrow, and for us to then make a decision afterwards, I'm certainly not opposed to a special meeting just to deal with these things. But let me sort of backdate these things. Looking at the timeline, which this is what we're going by. So October 25th as the RFQ deadline. Is that
response, right?
For responses returned. Right?
Going out the 11th.
Right.
Responses returned. So I don't feel we are got to get that out right now. Now appraisal completed. How long, John?
3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks.
3 to 4 weeks. So let's circle back to that. And then the single source of information, John, you said website, wherever everything's kept. And certainly, I think that's easy enough. I guess, in that spending more money, and it's not coming out of the 20 that we've set aside, because that's is to be dedicated to legal costs. So are we proposing dipping into, for these appraisal costs, into the Affordable Housing Fund again?
Yes.
Comments?
Well, I just had a quick question on the appraisal. So is there a timeline issue? Like, I'm not totally sure how these things all interconnect. So that'd be one thing, is like, how bad is it if we wait until the next meeting? And then the second thing is could we just empower y'all to talk about it and then decide after that? Is that a thing we can do? I don't know. 2 questions.
I'd like more information on the land first, just to be clear.
On the replacement?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we're concerned about land, the replacement land, only because this is half question, half statement. I presume that we're concerned about the land because of the school board's resolution advising that we would not get access to the 3.6 acres until they have secured replacement land. Is that the concern? Okay.
Until they have secured replacements for similar purposes, yeah.
Personally, I don't want to rush into anything. If tomorrow is where there's going to be a boatload of additional information. On the other hand, I don't want to disrupt the timeline. So, Johnny, are you saying we in order to remain true to the timeline, we need to act immediately?
I should back up. Brian brought that he would like to have the RFQ out by Friday. Staff originally had the RFQ going out November 8th.
Well, that's why we're RFP.
The RFP, but it can be the same as RFQ. So, to be honest with you, if we put out a generic RFQ, it's like sending out a hey, we're going to do a water line project in the village. We don't know what streets yet. Are you interested? Are you interested? We'll probably get some people that's interested in it, but they don't know no details. I would like to have more details before sending something out. That's the reason why I'm asking if council wants us to put the RFQ out, staff's going to drop what we're doing, and we'll have an RFQ out on Friday.
But you're suggesting that's not the wisest approach, given what we know?
Well, if we're just looking for qualifications, I mean, we can make some phone calls, but I think we should have a plan before we put an RFQ or an RFP out. Because, I mean, we are asking for people to submit documents to the village that we don't even know what the document should include.
So, just while you're talking, can somebody, does anybody have any context of why is the appraisal needed on this timeline? Like if we did it, we're going back and forth between the things. I'm just trying to get all the
I was asked to bring a quote for the appraisal. That's the reason why the appraisal's on for a vote tonight. I don't know that it's needed for RFQ. I really think it's just more we need to get it done.
Okay.
But the other thing is with the appraisals on the value of the land and there's a hypothetical and there's a $75,000 to $80,000 the appraisal code come back that it's only $10,000 an acre. So I think we should have that appraisal before we go into any agreement on what we're purchasing the land for.
Okay. So one answer why an RFQ needs to, or I'm sorry, the appraisal has to happen sooner is that if it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks, so that means we're into early November. Right. And then if we are going to finalize an option to purchase land, that also, I mean, that is the first step in a variety of other steps that, I mean, Amy Blankenship could highlight a little bit more or whatever, but there are environmental ones to do, there are a variety of other things to do. So if we believe that we need to get this together by December 1st, I mean, waiting to decide that we're willing to, spend up to $1,500 until the 21st pushes that until the end of November, and then we've got about a week and a half to negotiate an option to purchase. So,
Brian, do you know, is an appraisal needed for the removal of whatever with Huntington Bank or U.S. Bank? Is the appraisal
I've never heard that, but Amy, okay. Yeah. So no, yeah. So I think that's just what the schools want, just like what we want, okay, when we sell our property. And then I'll just go back to the RFQ thing. This is not about what Brian wants. It's about, like, RFQs are a very basic process for just getting the word out there. And so if we're serious about this, it seems very low cost. And staff has already told us, and it's in the memo, that they've been thinking about what would go into this, including what came up at our Wednesday meeting. Dorothee and Amy Bailey both highlighted this. We want to make sure the developer's prioritizing family rentals. So we want that to be maximized 2 to 3 bedrooms. So we know some of the things we're looking for. We are also probably looking for a contribution for replacement athletic fields, especially if the 500,000 number, that was thrown out at our Wednesday meeting, not really confirmed. I mean, I've just recently got another number that it's more like 50 to 100,000. So we need to, there are things that we need to put out there. And so I guess I would just be mindful that we're now at the point where we're close to making this happen, but if we continue to not be proactive about decisions, it's going to get really tough.
Really quickly, since it's not legally required and the lien isn't, none of the liens are lifted. That's not a thing yet. And it's not required that we have the appraisal. We have a meeting tomorrow. That's what I was concerned about, is whether or not it was, it legally had to be done before the lien removal could be done.
So I guess the other answer to, Gavin, your question is, Johnny has the ability to spend $1,500. So like to your point of, could that permission be given? It could.
And then on the amount for the preparation of the property, since the numbers are different, I was going to ask, can we add that to the timeline? Because you were going to look into getting the specifics on that. Can you please add that someplace on the timeline for next meeting?
Trish, can you repeat that? Sorry, I think I'm hearing some, what was that?
Yeah, so for the replacement property, there were different numbers at our joint meeting.
The quotes on preparing
it to be an actual soccer field, anywhere from $50,000 up to $500,000. So I think that understanding what that true cost is, and then we're going to have a joint meeting and a discussion on who's going to pay that, right? But I just wanted to see that added into the timeline here.
Yeah, I just want to point out that that timeline doesn't contemplate doing any appraisals or any work on the replacement property. So if we wanted to incorporate it, it would be, I guess, probably we would want to seek direction from the council that we would want to pursue that. And then along the same line of the replacement property, I think it is good to focus on that because that is the critical path item right now, at least in our opinion, is that since the school board has said that they won't enter into an agreement to sell the property to us until the replacement property is found, that it's kind of, we feel like we're a little bit in limbo with that. So, or unless we receive direction differently from the council on how to move forward with that. So it would be good to get clarity, I guess. And then I had another, I just lost it, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, you trace your steps.
Come back when you remember.
Oh, right, that was it. So the two hypothetical properties that we're trying not to talk about, I guess, are to the south or north, I don't know, the other two. The one is completely off the table, right, because he says he won't carve it out. The other one that we still, Brian said, still has kind of an open-ended discussion with us. If we were going to move forward with that, it will be, let's say they did agree to it, to do soccer fields there. We would have to first verify that the township is properly zoned for that, because it is outside of the village limits, and we also would have to subdivide it, assuming she wanted to, I'm sure she probably didn't want to do all of it, but then for soccer fields, so, because I think it's like 40 to 60 acres. We would want to subdivide it, which would be another process, and that's not with the village, and it's outside the village limits, so we would have no control over the timeframes. It could be I would say at least 3 to 6 months, potentially, not knowing the process, and it goes to Greene County. So anyways, just my 2 cents. I don't know for sure. We haven't looked into it. If council wanted us to actually figure out the process to do that, you could let us know, and we will.
No, we're good. Thank you for everything.
We're not going to direct you to do anything on township property.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing you don't have to decide on appraisal costs necessarily tonight.
I'm not hearing it that way, so I think ultimately we should take a vote on these things.
Okay.
So there's a few different things here, so I'll just throw in my 2 cents on all of them, since we're kind of going around. So on the appraisal, I guess the amount is small. The idea of get it moving because there's other things that are involved is compelling to me. So I would be okay with the idea of going forward with the appraisal. The RFQ and timeline, I don't know. I guess I thought there had been more agreement on it. I don't feel strongly about it. The RFP part is the part that I feel like obviously that has to happen. So I'm just saying I don't have a strong opinion about that. Certainly support the website and getting information out there, in particular because so many people had questions that at the joint meeting that we said we'd answer, and look forward to getting all those out to people. And then I think, Meg, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but I think you were sort of asking about clarity from council on sort of how to engage on replacement land. And I guess this seems like it's the question. And it would be nice to have more information to be able to have a sort of thorough conversation about this. But as I put in the memo that I shared, I'm generally of the mind that, for instance, we could invest the money to be able to help with replacement land, for example, with getting it ready. And so I'm hopeful that's something that we would get to that point. But it sounds like we're running out of options here, effectively, if neither of these two options are there. And the Gaunt Park piece you mentioned, or I mentioned at the last joint meeting other parcels in town. We haven't had sort of substantive conversation about those things. So anyway, those are where I'm at on those the things that I think have come up.
All right. Let's do the low-hanging fruit. I have it as number 3. I don't know what order anything is in, but the single source of information, Johnny, you're saying website. What do you need from us?
A consensus that you guys want us to move forward with it.
With sharing information? All right. I would like to move that we agree to deputize Johnny and his staff to create some LIHTC / low-income housing related information flow to the public.
I'll second.
All right. Is there any other discussion on that one little tiny item? All right, hearing none. All in favor of doing so, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, please indicate by same sign. Not hearing anything, that motion has passed.
And just before we leave that, Meg's memo today is a starting point. Let's get that up there as soon as possible. And then we've collected all the questions from last Wednesday. We're going to continue to collect questions. Judy is probably the best person to flow that through, and then she can help, basically figure out who can answer that question and get it up there. So
I'm inclined to talk about RFQ now, but let's talk about appraisal. I'm sorry.
Public comment?
Sure. We didn't, but we can. We're all here. On the 2 remaining items, as opposed to the one we just voted on? Okay. Sure. Council, want to get your read on that? Which, if any of these items are...
Public comment.
Yeah, would you want to receive public comments on at this point?
I think we can decide about these 2 issues, and then I do think people are here to speak about the LIHTC thing. So I would, but I guess I think we can decide about what we're going to do with the appraisal and the RFQ.
For the record, I am sensitive to the ways that we could end up spending taxpayer dollars. It was my hope that we created these guardrails, with this $20,000, that somehow, if things went sideways, we would limit our exposure. In terms of dollar amount, it really doesn't matter. If we've wasted $1 of taxpayer dollars, we've wasted $20,000, or vice versa. So what is the lowest hurdle? And someone suggested or reminded us that Johnny, you have the wherewithal to spend a certain amount, without coming to us. So do we really need to go any further with that? I mean, if we...
Yes, because you've got a village manager who's hearing different things from different people. So, yes, I think council needs to say, yes, proceed. This is something that I'm approving you to do. Yes.
I therefore move that we authorize Johnny to spend money out of the Affordable Housing Fund up to $1,500 at the time that seems appropriate to him to cover the appraisal cost for the 3.6 acres. I've made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other further discussion? All right, all in favor of authorizing Johnny to pay for the appraisal costs out of the Affordable Housing Fund at the appropriate time that he deems necessary, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Yes.
Yes.
So is that 3 yeses and 2 noes, even though I heard the word yes? So you were opposed? Okay, just want to make sure because you said yes. So 3-2 vote, if I heard correctly, that motion is passed. Okay. This RFQ bothers me because it makes, in my little brain, very little sense to ask a question when you don't know what the question is. I suppose the timeline might be the driver, for the RFQ.
So can I just interject that I think the question is, are you qualified to apply for and implement a LIHTC project?
Yes.
Well, and I mean, but this is how RFQs work.
Yes.
And so then, this is our opportunity to say, and we want it to be as much family housing as possible, because I've heard from folks that to make the math, 1-bedrooms get thrown into the mix. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard. So, I mean, to me, the question's pretty clear, and I think the amount of work to put together an RFQ, especially since there's already been thinking on it, should not be that significant. But, at the same time, if there's enough, doubt about doing that, I just think we got to be cognizant of, all right, when are we, admitting that we're, we want to make this happen, So, I mean, we need to have developers in the queue.
Well, I think everyone has said that they are committed to this project, but there's just questions remaining. I mean, there's just a lot of information that, I mean, it's just not apparent. There's a lot of unknowns.
I agree.
And I appreciate everything that you've said, Brian, and I want everyone to know that I've been listening, and also, because this is such a big deal, we have to have the second meeting, because that Part B of that resolution that's a sticking point.
Sure, you're right.
And we need to have that conversation. And we don't even know if we can get out of the liens yet. So there's so many variables, and we're running right up against, we can keep going with this, but if the people that have these entanglements or the interest in the land or say no, we just don't know. And so what I would like to see is that Part B, like talking about Medicaid, it's not working out DDFS, but taken care of. And I mean, the appraisal, I guess, that's going to fly.
Please, for clarity, Part B of the school's resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's a huge question.
All right, so my sense is that why don't we just talk about RFQ or RFP on the 21st? I think we've spent a good amount of time on this, and if we're going to take community comment, so I'm okay with that. And so, and I agree with what everyone's saying. Yeah, there are so many unknowns.
I didn't have an issue with the RFQ.
What's that?
I didn't really have an issue with the RFQ.
It was the other stuff.
Right, because, I mean, that's something that we could have just to have. To make those kinds of relationships, but I'm cool. We can do that, too.
Okay, well, I mean, or we can have a vote. Sometimes I guess I back off too quick.
No. Let's set it aside. Let's set it aside. Because I know that may not have been the biggest issue that everyone has concerns with. But given that, I hope surely that something very, very good and very, very important comes out of tomorrow's meeting that I think could probably help inform things.
I would not think about it that way myself. There's a lot of stuff to discuss, but I don't know. I'd have different expectations. But maybe what we could agree on is I wanted to get something on paper about the RFQ, RFP, so that citizens and elected officials can respond to it. And so this goes back to what I heard at our joint meeting is getting to give us some feedback to make sure that this project is what we're expecting. So if we could at least do that, even if we're not putting something out, that would be great.
So I think I don't care that much about the RFQ. The RFP seems like the most important piece. It sounds like we all agree that's going to need to happen. I think what I'm hearing you say at the end, Brian, is so could we bring an RFP draft, like say before the next council meeting, so that essentially we remove the RFQ from this timeline, but that we have some time to review, that citizens can review, that council can review an RFP, which I don't know if it was assumed that it would be in here, but I don't see it as part of the timeline. But that way there's that input component. Would that be okay?
I hear what you're saying, and I like the inclusivity feature, but I feel like given the tight timeline here, I would not send an RFP out to citizens in general. I think you need to home in on that very tightly with this group and get something back to council and get something back to that you know is workable. This is not time to...
And to be clear, I wasn't saying to send it. I was just saying it would be in the packet. That would be the way that citizens could engage.
And
Gotcha.
you definitely want to do you want to do the queue? You think it's important to do the RFQ early?
I don't, if we're going to do it at a tight deadline, I think an RFP is necessary.
Right.
You got an RFQ is just getting the qualifications, and then you pick amongst, if you have 10 submitted, you pick the best 3, and then you can send an RFP. We have
to be clear,
specifics and information, an RFP, and then everybody's bidding apples to apples.
And the RFP is what you're saying, that you don't feel that you have enough information to prepare as of today? Okay.
What do you think, or what's going to be the source of information to give you greater confidence in producing a good RFP?
School board on the land, and then being able to get it here to council to be able to look. And I'm also got an email into St. Mary's to try to help clarify some questions that I asked them back in May. So I'm hoping to get a response back from them as well.
All right. Sorry. So I'd like to keep the ball moving. If I haven't said, well, that's enough. I'd like to keep the ball moving until there is a conclusion to this process. And I'd like for us to not be a stumbling block in getting us there. Does someone want to make a motion about the RFP?
Yeah, so I guess I'll make the motion that we have an RFP draft for the next meeting, and we plan to put it out by the beginning of November, so that we have a month's time to put that out there and process it. So
I would like to add that we, provided that we have information on the replacement property.
Okay.
With the November 1 deadline.
That sounds good.
With the November 1 deadline? Is that what you said?
He had the November
Yeah.
1, I was just saying.
With that, okay, cool.
If that's the deadline, but it's provided that we have that information.
Okay.
Okay. So then, can that then become Tricia's motion that I second?
Yes.
That works.
Okay, so.
All right. All in favor of approving said motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the motion is passed. I feel like we're done with LIHTC for this evening. Are we?
Well, yeah, thought we were going to...
Am I missing something? Help me out here.
I think she's talking about public comment, and then this question around clarity about replacement land. So did we give you clarity?
That's a school board issue.
We'll have more tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm just going back to at the beginning. You said we didn't want to leave meetings and not know what we wanted, and so just trying to...
Wait. All right, I think we're going to Tecumseh Land Trust. Folks, it was a suggestion. I think we've decided things. I think we're moving on. Let me query my colleagues. Council, do you want to give public comments on this?
I'm generally in favor of hearing public comments. I feel like we're just from like a consistency standpoint, we've been taking public comments consistently. If we're going to change that practice, I think we should communicate it, because I think we should value people's time if they come to meetings, especially if they have something to say. That's my 2 cents.
I do agree with that, by the way. Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Maybe just underscoring what you said at the top of citizen concerns, that if it's not something new
information,
then you don't have to speak at every meeting, so but yeah, I think that would be a nice reminder, since we've talked about this for a while, but anyway.
And Gavin, you're right. We've deviated from the norm, if you will, on a few other occasions. A lot has been said, so I would be surprised that there's something new. But we are going to ask if you do want to share a public comment. All the same rules. Judy's the timer. New information, please. So, The floor is open for public comments on LIHTC. Uh-oh, is you back? Okay.
One real quick question. You brought it up, second time you brought it up, about transparency in the site, doing the fields, the soccer fields. You cited 20,000, 50,000 at Wednesday. Now we're 50 to 100. We're 500 to 400. For the sake of transparency, I want to see some sources. We would like to know some sources for you're putting these numbers out, and I don't know who they are. So that's what I'd like to know so we can verify, because we can look into it also too. Thank you.
Any other comments? Emily?
I think I just, just so you know, and everybody, none of us have any sources, so it's not like anybody.
Well, hold on a second.
They should have never been thrown out.
Hey, I'm sorry. Time out. The person that has the most experience on this dais, who happens to be our village manager, didn't throw a number out. He consulted with one of his colleagues that he's had a relationship for years and years. As far as I'm concerned, everything else has been numbers thrown out. So, and his number was what it was, $300,000 to $500,000. We're talking about a cornfield and soybean field into a playable surface. It's not. It's more complicated than just mowing over a field. So that's that. It wasn't, there was some throwing out of numbers, and then some of it wasn't throwing out of the numbers. Some of it was from experience.
Yeah, I'm just saying, for my point for clarification is just that we don't have any bids, right? So I just want to make sure people know that it's not like we're throwing around numbers that we have. There's no bids. There's been a couple people have asked and have some intel, but there's not like someone came and inspect it and here's what it is. I just want to make sure that people know. That's all.
So, Emily, did someone please? Okay. Emily, please.
Thanks. I'm Emily Seibel, Executive Director of Yellow Springs Home Ache. This whole process is exhausting and circular and confusing and complex, and that is the nature of affordable housing development. So we really appreciate at Yellow Springs Home Ache the emphasis on identifying, as you said, Trish, replacement soccer fields. We're really not interested in moving forward either without the soccer fields, even if we could, because as we've said from the day one when we first brought this to you, we're interested in a win-win for all parties. And then supporting Johnny in leaving meetings with a clear direction. I just request that as part of your meeting tomorrow or just moving forward, you could help us clarify our role in this process moving forward. We typically would consider ourselves the local partner developer or the minor partner, as we've done in prior LIHTC applications and have been involved from the beginning. I think we could help potentially as part of the task force, or we could respond to the RFQ as a minor partner, or any number of other things, but just some clarity around that would be incredibly helpful, so I could take that back to our board as we're looking at our work planning and priorities over the coming months. And then the last thing is the RFQ or RFP. I think the Chodo piece is really important and should be, I would propose, a deal breaker. It's not just the ability to develop a tax credit project, it's the ability to qualify as a Chodo in Greene County at this time, which is a much harder test. And then
St. Mary does, though, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they would.
Okay.
We're also interested, just in general, in a deeper collaboration with the village moving forward, as I like to reiterate. So we're here to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Dorothee?
Hi, Dorothee Bouquet. I'm a village parent, but also a school board member. have heard tonight a mention of Gone Park for the replacement fields, and it's the first time that I'm hearing of this, so I just want to give a first thought that I have about this. School districts are mandated to respect Title IX, which guarantees the equal treatment of female and male student athletes in the provisions of, and I'm going to skip some parts, but it goes to the scheduling of games and practice times, and also access to locker rooms, practice, and competitive facilities. The fields that we're talking about displacing here are the girls' athletic fields. If we move them to Gaunt, how is the school district able to comply to Title IX here? And so I had those thoughts during our intergovernmental meeting last week, but because we had not been speaking about Gaunt and we were talking about land that was contiguous to the school district, I didn't want to waste our time and iterate that point, but now that we're talking about fields that are away from the school campus, I want the village council to be mindful of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothee.
So I'll be real quick. I think one thing we're not taking into account here is when we go out with an RFP or whatever, we're not talking about casting some wide net. There's a very few number of entities that can actually undertake a project like this. And let's be honest, we're going to be coming to them at the very last minute. These things are due in February. You're going to drop this on them in December, right before Christmas, and expect them to make some Herculean lift. This is not going to be an attractive project to a lot of people. Let's be real about that. So the idea that the developer is going to come out of their pocket to pay for the cost to remediate fields or anything like that, completely unrealistic. If that's something that this council wants to do, you should plan to budget that out of your budget. Let's call it what it is. We're throwing a Hail Mary. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Yes.
Rebecca Potter, also as Dorothee Bouquet, a school board member, although speak as a citizen, I'm addressing things that are just public record and have been out there, and it's just a minor point of clarification, but one I think that can help us get a better picture, Trish, that if you look at what was subdivided and will be rezoned, it's the 3.6 acres that's running adjacent to the ESC, and there is a considerable part of the field that remains, enough easily for the girls' soccer to continue to practice, perhaps enough for 2 full-sized fields. So the 3.6 acres, also if you look at the surveyor's map, goes into the lines which actually are in the middle of East Enon Road and in the middle of Dayton, Yellow Springs Road, the corner being the traffic section. So if you can imagine that it has a lot of edge. There are a lot of trees there. There's the sidewalks, etc. So so take a look. I think it's really important so we have a better sense of the considerable amount of field and green space and sports area, play area that remains. And you can also find the newly sunk survey marks to go out there and kind of visualize it yourself.
Thank you, Rebecca. Anyone else? All right, we're closing our public hearing on this topic. Thank you all for your participation. Nothing beats a lively discussion about something that we all care so much about. So again, thank you for all of your input. All right, we're now to new business, and this is the Tecumseh Land Trust request. And it says Burns, but I'm assuming it's you.
Well, it could be one or the other. It's a fail-safe on that.
Right.
So, council asked me to give a proposal or give some thought to this, and we did some research. I talked with Michelle today. I apologize for the late conversation with her. In the memo, I do state that it does not meet Dayton Street because the resolution 2015 46 actually calls out Dayton Street. Dayton Street is in the village limits. Dayton Yellow Springs in the second paragraph is outside the village limits. So my memo is per the resolution, not per the Jacoby Greenbelt. So, but let's fast forward. There is $205,000 in the green, or I'm sorry, there's $210,000, I believe, in the Green Space Fund. And we are proposing to do 113, match the township, because we know that there could be a possibility of another ask coming a little bit later.
And we did double check that 113 is the amount for the township? Okay.
Per the YS News.
What's that?
Per the YS News.
Okay.
A trusted news
Trusted source.
I was at the meeting and it was a little bit confusing, but yeah, okay.
All right, council, any comments, questions, discussion regarding staff's proposal to consider matching what the township has done at the amount of $113,000 out of the $210,000 with the knowledge that there's a potential additional property or properties where we might also be asked to dip into this fund. So comments, concerns, questions?
Where are the potential other properties, or are those the ones in the well field?
I cannot answer that. That would be the next
That'd be the
Burns.
other Burns.
Yeah, that'd be the other Burns.
All right, Michelle, would you like to come up, please?
Michelle Burns, Executive Director of Tecumseh Land Trust. The information we got about an additional property came right at the last minute before my presentation. So I'm not able to say anything more specific about that property, but it is one of the designated Jacoby Greenbelt priority properties. And I just want to be clear that we did verify that this property is within the Jacoby Greenbelt on Dayton Yellow Springs Road. Okay.
Just not on Dayton Street.
Yeah, I was surprised the resolution said that, yeah. I saw it. I figured that was the misunderstanding. So anyway, and since I'm up here, I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate our long-term land use planning and how often we revisit those land use plans to make sure that we are making the best decisions we can for the village.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle Burns.
The only other thing I will just say, not specifically related, but for historical record, I really appreciated the memo that highlighted the collaborations in the past, and good to also emphasize that the Green Space Fund leveraged millions of dollars in federal funding as well. So yeah, so lots of good stuff.
Any other comments? So if we're...
So resolution will be brought to your next meeting.
Oh, great. Thank you. I really appreciate that, Dina. All right.
Is there a time crunch?
So do we need to...
Is there a time crunch?
It's already commented, so.
Okay. Yeah, come on up. I see a hand, and I'm not hearing everything that everyone's saying, but come on up. State representative, no, just
I know, right?
Hey, Krista McGaugh from Yellow Springs. I really want to reiterate what Michelle said and encourage you to very specifically pull in the township on this next plan. I'm so excited that you've got Alyce lined up to do another plan. I mean, that has set Yellow Springs aside, really across the nation, you know, to do those plans, to update them, to work with them. And as a land trust, as a former TLT employee, I mean, we compared notes with people all over the country, and it was really extra special for Yellow Springs and the township to work together on these things. And there is so much going on, but boy, is it ever worth it. And it allows you to capture those federal monies and those state monies, which I hope our future future legislature will be able to put more in place of, so the state can play its fair part too. That's, I think, all I have tonight. I support your support of this resolution. I'm glad to hear that it's going to come to a vote.
Great. Thank you, Krista.
Can I just, real quick, just so folks know, we're not working on a comp plan, we're working on a strategic plan. So just, there's been some merging of these concepts. We'll get to a comp plan again someday, but there's not a plan for one now. So just so folks know.
Can I ask clarification on that? Would that then, strategic plan, guide the comp plan in the future?
I think that we should ask the person that is working on the strategic plan about that, is what I think.
All right.
If you have any, can you answer the question for Krista a little bit better? Thank you.
Yep. Matt, if you could, please. Thank you.
Alyce Giardillo, project lead. Yes, it could be. It would be more of like a goal or an initiative that we would put into the strategic plan to update that. So certainly we could see that come out. It's possible. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
But just so everyone's on the same page, I think what Krista's referring to is the township village vision that we did in 2010. So it wasn't a comp plan, but it was... it was a strategic, I mean, it was a visioning exercise. And so part of what I heard Krista saying is like, let's not forget the township in the mix.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you all for that. Yes,
All right.
Matt.
So I guess, for me, I feel like the last decade I've lived here, whoever's been on this board here, we consistently talk about how the community is going in the wrong direction as far as becoming less diverse, more affluent, of housing is even more affordable. It's all these things are harder and harder. And a lot of these things come down to land use decisions. So I guess I'd challenge this body, what different land use decisions are you making? Because what I hear is that you're making a lot of the same land use decisions over and over again, but sitting up here and going, we want different results. Well, I mean, something's got to give. You either have to make different decisions or accept the results that the decisions you are making are yielding you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Yes.
Mary Ann McQueen. I just want to support Tecumseh Land Trust's request for the Green Space Fund. When I was on council and with the Environmental Commission, and I specifically remember meeting with Brian and Krista when we went over what the priorities were. And the particular property that's for sale, apparently there's another one too, I'm not aware of that one, was in that area that we identified in the Jacoby Greenbelt for priority. So this is part of what we said and came to council with, and council approved that. So putting money toward this is doing what we said we would do. I'd also like to address, I think, what was just implied. As housing costs have gotten more across the country and in Yellow Springs, there has been a attempt to say that, well, part of the problem is that we're saving this farmland outside of Yellow Springs. Those are two separate issues. We have our, whatever that's the geographical boundary of the village.
Urban service boundary.
Urban service boundary, which extends to where our sewer system can go, gravity-fed sewer system can grow. This property is outside of that boundary. And it is important that we are saving prime farmland. Farmland is being eaten up. I mean, all you have to do is drive around Greene County and see what's happening. This is prime farmland, and it's important that we save that more and more. We will find that that's important to do. Two separate things, housing in Yellow Springs, saving natural areas and farmland outside of Yellow Springs, two separate things.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Any other comments? And I'm losing my thread for where I am on the agenda.
No more comments. No more comments. Do we have any other comments?
Nope, see no more comments. The public hearing is closed. Alrighty. Thank you all for your participation. Again, we do appreciate the concern, the fact that you all come out and spend your evening with us. Make it sound like it was a party, but we value your time, and so we thank you for coming and participating. Council, anything else before we move on to future agenda items? All right, seeing nothing, let's talk about future agenda items. Judy, what did we get? I know we've got a resolution.
So draft RFP, TLT resolution approving 113,000. And then everything else that you see, which is coming back for second reads.
Anyone have anything else that they think they might want to add to the future agenda? And I appreciate, I am just one little person, but I appreciate the way everybody carried on in my absence. So in terms of agenda planning, is Carmen? Okay, so for Friday. Okay. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Just stay here.
Stay put.
Yeah. I don't know who did. Did you second? I first.
I seconded.
Okay. Have it, Carmen.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.